What's up, everybody? We're on a podcast now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to give you guys my review on Marvel Cosmic Invasion. I want to thank everybody involved for giving me the code early. Super nice of them, and I just woke up one day to an email, and off I went. So I played this entire thing through Steam, through PC. That's what you're going to see. I played it using a DualSense controller, okay? And honestly, I had a blast. I think this game, look, I was going to get this game day one. I made the why I'm getting video on it, and maybe that caught their attention. I was fully ready, to drop the money and play it day one, and now I just got to play it a little bit early. So is the game any good? I actually think it's very good. I think this is a game that it's held up a lot through characters, and I'll explain kind of what I mean by that throughout the entire thing. But let's try to describe this game a little bit, right? So you got a beat 'em up game, side scroller, and it really, I think, falls in line with a lot of the other ones in terms of the structure of kind of what you would get from it. So there's a story mode, a campaign, and it's not all that long. I mean, we're going to be talking about length and all that stuff in this video. I think it took me, now I first played it solo, okay? If you see two people when I'm showing you like my B-roll footage, my daughter, actually, I enlisted her. You know what? She's pretty good. She's not amazing, but she's pretty good, and I'm really proud of her and happy that we got to play it together. I did that afterwards, but I played the campaign by myself. Now, okay, well, what do you do there? So it's mission by mission. You have a really, in my opinion, kind of a cool animated type cutscene that kind of sets up each one. And the thing is, each one of these missions will have challenges associated with them, okay? And they'll be linked to different characters. So there's kind of a light push as to who you should bring into the fight. So remember, you actually are bringing in two people. Now, the second person, there's a way for them to help you in the actual combat, but then also you can just kind of switch back and forth, right? So if there's a random mission, it might tell you to bring in whoever, Spider-Man and Rocket, right? I don't think actually there's a mission that does that, which there maybe should be, but there could be a mission like that. And you bring those two in, and there's going to be a challenge associated, say, with either one of them. So in any given mission, you could have 2 to really 8 players. Is if you bring in 3 of your friends, right? You play with 4 people in all. They all get to choose 2 different people each. So I think it's a really great setup. Everything in this game looks so amazing. I mentioned kind of the different style of cutscene that the game does, but even just the actual map, these are, I think, very, very talented developers. I remember watching I think they did like a gameplay walkthrough, and they talked about one of their style and one of their kind of basically DNA is the background. Like always when you look at the background of their missions, and it goes to like Shredder's Revenge, I think it looks like that in Scott Pilgrim EX as well. You look at always what's going on behind what you're doing. It's very busy. There's a lot of enemies and stuff, but you look behind, and there's always something really cool to kind of catch or to look. So, look, the game's actually very varied. You go through a lot of different locations. There's always a boss fight. The boss fights, I think, are really, really cool. They do enough where you're always jumping enemies. There's always a new enemy that's kind of coming in, but there is a rotation. It's about an invasion, and it's about using basically these different factions as Annihilus's army. Okay, so you're gonna have kind of classics, and I guess classics meaning you're gonna have characters or enemy types that are consistent, right? They're gonna stay through the entire thing, but you're also gonna have new ones that will pop in every now and then. And like I said, the bosses are really cool. They're oftentimes connected to whatever that story mission might be. They're oftentimes connected maybe to the characters that they want you to bring in. Really nice. And the boss fights they're varied, they're challenging, some more challenging than others, but they're kind of all over the place in a good way. And then, okay, well, let's spend some time just talking about the fighting itself. Really good. Really, really fun. It took me a little bit to get into it, and I think when you're rolling, the game feels incredible. To be honest, maybe the more people, the better, because I think this is a game that kind of scales up with how many people you're playing with, right? So when I'm playing solo, you can probably tell, just even using like an eye test, right? You look at the amount of enemies on screen when it's just me, there's not as many, right? But when it's me and my daughter, there is more. There's definitely more, and it's not that it like clutters up or makes it look messy. It's more like in your face. It's more like, okay, it's go time. You got to throw everything you got at it. I feel like the fighting is highly responsive. I feel like this is a game that's right in a perfect place for someone like me, where there is a little bit of a learning curve. Some of these characters actually have I would say Rocket, by the way, plays very differently than any other character in this game. There's kind of classes. There's characters that are fast and they're kind of like dodge heavy characters. Then there's like middle tier, and when I say middle tier, I mean like they're not super slow, but they're not super fast, and they might block, okay? And I would say like Captain America, Iron Man, people like that, maybe even Phoenix would be some of those. And then you have your absolute tanks, people that are just like absolute, they're the slowest people on planet Earth, but they deal so much damage, they actually take up a good amount of the screen. She-Hulk, I think, would be a good example of that one, right? So you kind of have those three classes, and then Rocket, I would really put in his own class, which I actually think is kind of cool. And they're all so much fun to play. I know it took me a little while, but when I was talking about this game being held up by them, I do mean that. Look, the game is a very well-rounded game. I think the game is very fun. The characters is what makes this game jump from, like, pretty good to, like, really good, if not excellent, because each one of them, even though I just described two classes, they're all so different. You know, playing as Captain America, you're playing as Cap. If you're playing as Iron Man, yeah, you know, again, he's kind of in the same tier I would put him in, but you play as him entirely different. Some can fly and kind of hover above the ground. Some of their range attacks are just, you know, you think about, say, Iron Man, right? He's got like the blasters, right? So his range attacks are kind of a specific way of how they're going to target and what they're going to hit. But say Captain America, right? You throw the shield will actually bounce and it'll hit different, like it can go up and down versus just left to right. So just that alone, right? Not to mention like Spider-Man and Venom, they can web swing, and as they're web swinging, they can do an attack in the air, or they can do kind of like a slide, or Venom kind of does like an underground type attack. There are some similarities, again, because there's classes for the most part, right? You might want a character that's more of a tank, and then you might want a faster character, and that's oftentimes what I would do. The game, again, pushes you to do certain things, but you don't have to do it. You can pick whichever characters you want, and I found sometimes taking two of those mid-tier, like Cap and Iron Man, or I would take like a Wolverine, and I would take like a Silver Surfer, right? Kind of almost two opposite ends, and I found that to work really well because they are different. You know, when you're playing as one versus the other, again, sometimes the moves might come back. You might notice something is a little close to something else, but that's more of a rarity, I would say, than anything. These characters are, and by the way, like, I know I'm emphasizing this so much, it's a big cast. This is 15 characters. Like, look, I think it would be impressive if there's 4 characters that are just really different. This is 15, and I really think the uniqueness in all of them really stands out. And so why do I spend so much time talking about it? Well, to be fair, it is a short game. It took me less than 3 hours to beat the campaign. Now, okay, let's talk about that. What is there to do in this game? There's a campaign, and of course, now here's the deal. You can go back and you can replay it. You can do those challenges. You can pick different characters for the different missions, right? I think there is replayability there because you might have gone through it one way, and you say, you know what, I want to do it a different way with a different character. Also, the characters actually have levels. You have like a team rank, and then you have a character rank, and they get passive abilities. They get extra health. They kind of in the background improve. So if you say you just beat the game entirely with like Wolverine, you just rock Wolverine through all of the missions. If you restart it and you're Wolverine, you're going to be far more powerful than you would be if you chose whoever, right? Just pick another character. And I think that's really cool because that kind of incentivizes you to say, okay, well, I want all my characters, you know, to be like that, because then you can kind of pick and choose at your leisure. So that is kind of why I mentioned, you know, that part. But there's also, okay, there's arcade mode. Arcade mode is what I was doing with my daughter. So that's the more customizable mode. That is one where you set a difficulty and you set modifiers. There's actually quite a few modifiers in that, and now you unlock those throughout, I think, the campaign. In the campaign mode is when you're unlocking, or you're getting, basically you're almost getting skill points to then unlock like a tree, and the tree will unlock cosmetics. So like the color palette is what each of these characters have. So you can unlock all these different colors. You can unlock music. You can unlock documents that you can kind of read that'll give you summaries on your characters, or it'll give you summaries on the villains, or it'll give you summaries on the location that you went to. And then you also can unlock modifiers, things that'll then change the arcade mode. So it does, again, like, I think it incentivizes you to play it as much as possible and to get as many of the unlocks as possible, because then you kind of open up the full game. And then when you go into arcade is a straight shot, right? So it's kind of one death. If you die, I guess if you both die in my situation, if you both die, you're done. So it's kind of just a race to see how much of the story can you get through in one go. Honestly, pretty challenging, and it's why I'm really proud of my daughter. We made it through half half the game without really trying all that much. She was really, really good, much better than I thought. And so, and you can customize that however you want, by the way. You can do different difficulties there. You can do different modifiers. You can give, like, enemies double health, or you can have, like, your ultimate ability charge faster, things like that, just to kind of mix it up. Look, it's a game that doesn't have 50 hours of replayability. It's a game that, if you're a one and done person, then you're looking at like 3 to 5 hours. But I don't think that's fair to the game. I don't think that's really what people would buy this game to do. I think there's more than like a 3 to 5 hour, amount of content here. And I just think it's fun. I mentioned the combat, and I was kind of talking about the different characters. Like, it's a game that's not too challenging, but it's a game that's not too easy. Like, it's not the most in-depth thing of all time. You don't need 10 hours. It's not a fighting game in the way of like Street Fighter, or where you need to study a character, right? You kind of need to be into that. This is a thing that'll take you 10 minutes. If you spend 10 minutes kind of just even button mashing, you might say, oh, how did I do that move? And you will figure it out, because there's not that many moves you can do. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the level of difficulty that this game puts itself in, which I think is perfect. I don't think the game needed to do any more. I don't think the game needed to make it even easier. I think this was a really good spot, because like I figured it out, and then my daughter, she's struggling. I'm going through the different moves with her, but she doesn't know necessarily where the buttons are, right? So it took her a little bit, but she was pulling off different. She was attacking the aerial units as Phoenix a lot of the time, so she would handle something, I would handle something. I think it's good in that way. So I honestly think there's a lot here. I kind of think there's more here than I thought there would be, because it's not just the campaign. The campaign is very, very solid. I wouldn't say it's amazing or anything, but it's there. It has some cool voice acting. The voice acting, I would say, overall is very, very good. It's got an interesting story. Like, it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's there for like 2.5 hours, but it's really, really fun. And then you have all of the customization to those modes, right? You just play it over, and you're going for higher difficulties. You're seeing how good you can do. The game, I think, serves its purpose incredibly, incredibly well. This is a great beat-em-up game. I think it ultimately, much like a lot of games, just comes down to, is the price worth kind of how I'm describing the length and what's in the game, right? I know physically, which I think is coming early next year, the game's going to be $40. I think that's maybe the price right now. It could be 30 or 40 bucks at launch. Is that worth, however many hours you think you can do? Oh, but I will stress this, okay, to end the video. I think you can play this by yourself. It's probably more fun with another person, and you can go up to 4 players, and that might be an absolute blast. But again, like I had fun. To be honest, I really enjoyed it by myself. Like, I think that was a totally acceptable way of doing the story. Would I do it again by myself, the story? I probably want another person, and that's why, I enlisted my daughter, my wife. I could have brought her in, but she didn't really seem like she wanted to do it. So, I do think it can get enhanced, with other people, and that's just something to kind of keep in mind as well. I think this is a game you could get away if you don't have anybody that's getting it, and maybe that hurts, like maybe you don't want it now because nobody is getting it. I think it's acceptable. I think the game works and is enough fun by yourself to justify getting it. If you have friends, yes, is it a better game with people? It probably is, but I also think it's definitely an acceptable game to get it by yourself as well. So there you go. Over the next couple days, I want to do a couple other videos with this game, maybe like a tips and tricks thing. I do have preferred characters in this game as well, so we might talk about that. So stay tuned for more videos on this. Let me know what you think. Make sure you're subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.